The Mariners are a sinking ship and we are merely witnesses as the passengers drown in the sea below. What peril struck this ill-fated vessel? Well, a lot.
So I'm going to make a reaction video to this video made by the Urinating Tree. He has made several types of videos such as failing teams of the past, which turns out that some of those teams were reverse jinxed and then they won championships after those videos. Then you've probably seen him make weekly football updates on NFL games, which they are done really well. You should really look at those. And then you've seen like baseball, hockey, and basketball. And the other thing I really do like about his videos is I do like that he puts all these musics and soundtracks and sounds from video games and movies and he blends them all together, making it feel like that he does connect with his audience really well. So this video that I'm reacting to, he made one about the Seattle Mariners and their, quote, failing legacy, which it is true. And this video was done up from 1977 all the way up to 2019 at the very least. And there's an interesting story with this video. So I was actually partially part of the development of the video. I gave him some of the biggest key points of the Mariners' history, and he did go from there, and I did kind of influence him to say some parts of the video. I'll let you know when I influenced him on those parts of the videos. So yeah, I helped him with some scripts and pointers to put out, and when he made it, it was pretty good. I really liked it. I was not disappointed one bit, and this time I'm going to pay back the favor by making a reaction video of his video. And before we get started, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification bell if you want to see more content going in the future. You never know what you're going to get. So let's get started.
The Mariners are a sinking ship and we are merely witnesses as the passengers drown in the sea below. What peril struck this ill-fated vessel? Well, a lot.
What does that mean?
It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Seattle is introduced to Major League Baseball with the Pilots, a team rushed to fruition thanks to a Missouri senator being triggered by the A's moving to Oakland.
Oh wow, the Oakland A's. Now, here are some facts about the Oakland A's. They were actually in Philadelphia under the great Connie Mack, and they won some World Series there at the time. Then they went to Kansas City, and then went to Oakland, and that's where they've been since. And it sounds like they may end up going to Vegas. And there's another video by Urinating Tree that does explain about possible fate of the Oakland A's. Check out this video as well.
The only thing of note they do is suck enough air to go broke thanks to being nowhere near ready for the big time. Things get so bad that they are bought by a used car salesman named Bud Selig and moved to Milwaukee before the next season. That was fast.
I do like that part where he was like, that was fast. I mean, it literally was. The Seattle Pilots, they played literally one full season of baseball where their record was 64-98 and they tied a game. Yeah, they tied a game. But yeah, this season, 1969, was as disastrous as you could say out of any other expansion team. I mean, if you think like the Cleveland Browns had a disaster of a expansion season of 1999, go to the Seattle Pilots, where not only did they have a terrible season, they left straight for Milwaukee. Yeah, that was fast. Oh, Bud Selig, the eventual commissioner of baseball.
The state of Washington bitches enough about the move that they are given another franchise called the Seattle Mariners, a team that has a legitimate stadium and some semblance of long-term stability. The only punishment for such a deal with the devil is being completely terrible.
So not only was there complaining going around, there was also legal problems going on with the fact that the Seattle Pilots left for Milwaukee. Yeah, it became the Brewers. And the most instrumental figure of this process of bringing baseball back to Seattle was Republican Senator Slade Gordon. And he was a longtime senator, at least up until 2000, where he was defeated by Maria Cantwell in a very close, controversial race. I'm not going to go that much into it. But yeah, he was a big part of bringing baseball back, and he almost tried to save the Sonics from leaving Seattle, too.
For the next half-decade...
Oh yes, the Mariners were that bad.
Keep blowing, Lenny! It's not gonna make the Mariners less shitty!
That was pretty much their only highlight of the entire 1980s, I guess.
Guess what? I lied. Keep going. Oh, you were almost to 500. So close. I'll be laughing at your failure in the corner. Take this consolation prize from an elite talent named Ken Griffey Jr. He might not suck as much as you do.
There was a lot of pressure about Ken Griffey Jr. joining the Mariners, like a lot of pressure. I heard that he even thought of suicide because of the stress of becoming the possible face of the Seattle Mariners.
Nope, still garbage, even with the Griffey father and son duo. Maybe next time you'll bring fans into your stadium, right after they stop wallowing in self-pity.
I mean, they were still rebuilding, but that at least during that time, they were at least making some kind of progress. So not only was Ken Griffey Jr. drafted, this is also the time when they brought Edgar Martinez, got Jay Buhner from the Yankees.
What the hell did you trade Jay Buhner for? He had 30 home runs and over 100 RBIs last year. He's got a rocket for an arm. You don't know what the hell you're doing.
They drafted Tino Martinez, and they even traded for Randy Johnson. And that was off of Mark Langston, who was a longtime Mariner in the 1980s.
Congratulations, Mariners! You finally posted a winning season for the first time in franchise history. Unfortunately, your so-called hero Jeff Smullian is gung-ho on packing the team up like Seelig did all those years ago. Regardless, a knight in shining armor comes to save the day. Nintendo?
Mamma mia!
So I like that Urinating Tree slipped in that Mamma Mia! With the Mario, and oh boy, yeah, that first above 500 record for the Mariners where they went 83 and 79 in the 1991 season. So the owner of Nintendo at the time, Hiroshi Yamauchi, he bought the Mariners, and here's the thing, he never showed up to a game ever. So as much as you can say what you want about Nintendo and their involvement with the Mariners, you gotta give him credit that he was willing to invest on a baseball team where they had no hope and you had no idea whether you're gonna make money off of it. Well, turns out he did, so good for him on that part.
The news has your stock plummet and revert to typical ineptitude. Who the hell is Alex Rodriguez and why should I be comforted by this disaster?
It was that 1992 season where the Mariners were supposed to contend for the playoffs. They went from 83 and 79 in 1991 to 64 and 98 and went back. But hey, at least it got Alex Rodriguez.
Omar Vizquel just won a gold glove, but that Rodriguez kid is on the way. I know what to do. Trade him to the Indians. The Emerald City likes the smell of garbage players and cash better anyway.
Oh, trust me. That move out of Omar Vizquel, that's the first of many tanking moves you're going to hear about the Mariners. And can you imagine if Omar Vizquel and Alex Rodriguez held the infield department? That would have been a stacked infield if you just had those two alone and Tino Martinez at first base and then whoever at second base, Brett Boone. Actually, what he was with the Mariners early. And I guess Joey Cora. Who knows? Who knows what could have happened?
Well, the Mariners are forgettable enough that the local government doesn't give a shit about their plight and is cool with them fucking off. Years of failure with terrible attendance, a decrepit stadium, and Sisyphean rock pushing have led to a dire situation. The franchise is on the brink. Around 500 deep into August, there is no hope. Might as well fold and await the inevitable.
Yeah, hope was pretty much down. Here's what you had. You had a stadium that was falling apart, which it literally did in 1994 when the tiles fell. And then you see Ken Griffey Jr. just getting hurt in the middle of the 1995 season, more like close to the beginning of the season. And during that time, they were barely just scraping by with the wild card spot. And it was pretty unclear if the Mariners were going to make the playoffs. Oh, and also, the state rejected the stadium by a narrow voting margin. So yeah, at the time, it really looked like the Mariners were going to be gone. And he said it perfectly.
How the fuck did this awful franchise pull a Nosferatu and come back from the dead? They made the playoffs? Something must have fucked up the true timeline. Someone get it back, please.
Yeah, that 95 run was that shocking that he definitely had the right to have a reaction like that.
The Mariners end up bringing hope back to the miserable citizens of Seattle by making a passionate run to the ALCS. As a result, local politicians' hearts grow 3 sizes and approve a new stadium for the team. The franchise is saved. With guys like Griffey, Randy Johnson, Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez, and top prospect A-Rod, who knows what they can accomplish? The future is brighter than ever.
And this was supposed to be a dynasty in the making for the Mariners. The future really was that bright with those core players that he did mention. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And why? Well, you're about to see more in this video.
A future full of cost-cutting as they let go of many key players and nearly trade Edgar Martinez to the Mets. At least they've won 10 straight and might make the playoffs.
I kind of crafted that for him where, yeah, the Mariners literally went on a purge. Like, we're talking like Execute Order 66 style purging of the Mariners.
Execute Order 66.
where they traded away Tino Martinez, they got rid of Mike Blowers, they got rid of Andy Bennis and all these other key players for 1996.
They proceed to punch their fans in the dick by losing 8 of 10 and failing to make the big dance. Surely this won't be a repeatable offense.
I would sure hope that's not a repeatable offense of getting punched in the dick because, well, knowing as a Mariners fan, yeah, that's all I can say. And rather than watching the Mariners potentially win a World Series after that 95 run to capitalize on, we got to see the Yankees win a World Series thanks to trading away Tino Martinez to the Yankees for basically nothing. Oh, and Jeff Nelson. But there was one consolation prize that the Mariners did give out. We got this highlight movie called You Gotta Love These Guys.
You gotta love these guys. You gotta love these guys.
And here's a link to that video too.
Who the fuck is David Ortiz and why should I care if he's gone? At least I know who Dave Hollins even is.
Not only did the Mariners build the Yankees dynasty, but they also found a way to help build Boston's dynasty. Now, granted, the trade was with the Minnesota Twins, but it turns out that the Twins had David Ortiz at least until the 2002 season, and then they got rid of him, and then Boston picked him up. And then Dave Hollins, although he did pretty well with the Mariners in that last month of the 1996 season, the Mariners didn't even bother bringing him back. And this was only because the Mariners had Russ Davis as a third baseman who they got out of Tino Martinez, but he had a broken leg, so they had to find some kind of replacement, which Dave Hollins did, but because you already had Russ Davis, you got rid of him.
The Mariners have gobs of talent throughout the lineup, but still need a piece or two to bolster the overall picture. The bullpen is too much flaming wreckage to get them over the top. Mike Timlin is the prize. All it's going to cost them is one of the top prospects in baseball in Jose Cruz? What the hell?
It was a what the hell moment because, I mean, the Mariners didn't really have a choice but to, fix up their bullpen because throughout that first half of the 1997 season, although the offense was great and the starting pitching was really good, the Mariners kept blowing it in last-minute situations because you had Bobby Ayala just completely blowing it, and you also had Norm Charlton, whose ERA just ballooned way above 5. So they basically had nothing to show for the bullpen. So they got so desperate, they got rid of one of our top prospects in Jose Cruz Jr. for Mike Timlin and Paul Spoljaric, and they didn't really turn out to be much at all.
This gross overpayment is not enough. They need Heathcliff Slocum and his over 5 ERA to shore things up. These two bums we gave up will amount to nothing, we swear on it.
Those two bums turned out to be Derek Lowe and Jason Varitek. Derek Lowe would become a longtime pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, contributing to that 2004 championship, and Jason Varitek became that lone star catcher for the Boston Red Sox, who could have been a great predecessor for Dan Wilson.
They pretend to prove this gross overspending right with a 90-win season. All of it only leads to a relentless beating by means of Orioles in the ALDS. Perhaps you should have given up even more futures for pitching depth.
Yeah, so the Mariners won the AL West division in 1997, but it certainly came at a substantial cost of basically nuking your farm system for a bullpen that wasn't any better. And to make it even worse, Baltimore's pitching under Mike Mussina completely shut down the Mariners' offense. They didn't even amount to much at all.
Yep, there's the dick punch back to futility. How about some more bullpen collapses to ease the pain? Oh, that's making it worse. Too bad they have no interest in paying Randy Johnson and are about to trade him. Why the fuck would they acquire Mariano Rivera? He's a failed starter. Fuck off, Yankees.
Yeah, that was actually a thing, and I kind of did mention that to him as well, that the Mariners didn't want to repay Randy Johnson for his extension because Chuck Armstrong, Mariners president, was a prick. And he still had the bullpen that was just absolutely atrocious in 1997, going into 1998. When you put those two together, you have Randy Johnson demanding a trade, but he demanded the trade far before the season even started. And man, if I can do it again, I think I would have taken that Mariano Rivera deal over the deal that they got other than that.
Say goodbye to the big unit, Seattle. He's off to Houston for some prospects. Maybe these Garcia and Talama sprouts can become something.
And those prospects that the Mariners got out of the Randy Johnson trade, it was Carlos Guillen, John Halama, and Freddie Garcia. The good news is, Carlos Guillen at least turned into a decent player for the Mariners for the time being until he got better with Detroit. And then you had John Halama. He was okay, maybe for depth purposes, long time in the bullpen more kind of guy. And then you also had Freddie Garcia, who was really the real piece of that trade. He turned out to be a two-time All-Star for the Mariners. So I guess for that trade, it worked out pretty well. And then the Astros, they didn't even re-sign Randy Johnson after that because he went to the Diamondbacks.
Look at this shiny new stadium for Seattle to enjoy. There won't be much else to cheer for as the team once again shits the bed and fails to do anything of note.
Which is very true because in the 1999 season, it was the all as usual. Great offense, pretty solid starting pitching, and their bullpen led by Jose Mesa, absolutely atrocious. And it was like, why is Lou Piniella still pitching this guy? Because at least you had Paul Abbott and I guess Jose Paniagua. I don't know. But yeah, that 1999 season was another big disappointment.
You tired of the dick punching yet? Tough shit, Ken Griffey Jr. desires to live closer to family and demands a trade to Cincinnati? Good luck with that, Griff.
I like how Urinating Tree is now playing that perspective as a Mariners management saying, good luck with that, Griff, which, yeah, literally turned out because it didn't really work out in Cincinnati with Ken Griffey Jr. at all. I mean, he was a really skinny guy, really fit, and then once you see him in his last years of Cincinnati, he looks like he just ballooned the hell out of it. But at least the Mariners got Mike Cameron out of that trade.
The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a fly ball hit into deep center field. Cameron going back to the track, to the wall, makes the leap, and makes the catch!
The Mariners can live without his talents as they build themselves back to a strong 90-win team and make the postseason again. They crush the spirits of White Sox on their way to the ALCS. I feel tingly all of a sudden.
Yeah, it must have been a very tingly feeling. And I will say this, the 2000 Mariners season was actually the first full season where I actually paid attention and watched and looked up players and looked at their numbers and watched a lot of the games that year. And that was where Alex Rodriguez became my favorite player of the Mariners that season. And let me show you this. This is my Alex Rodriguez action figure. Yeah, take a look at that. I'm sure most of you would like to take this to shooting practice, unfortunately, because, yeah, I know how Mariner fans feel about Alex Rodriguez, but personally, I still think he deserves at least some kind of appreciation. Like, say what you want. No matter how much you hate Alex Rodriguez, he is still the greatest shortstop the Mariners have ever had. Don't lie to yourself about that.
That tingly sensation turns out to be diabetes. The god-awful bullpen amputates the leg as all hope is obliterated by the Yankees.
That 2000 bullpen was actually improved, where they had Arthur Rhodes and Kazuhiro Sasaki, and then they just fell apart in the playoffs, especially Arthur Rhodes. And I saw that Jose Mesa actually got some innings in that Yankees series in the ALCS, which made no sense at all. Like, there's something with Lou Piniella where he's just willing to pitch really bad pitchers from the bullpen. That also includes Bobby Ayala. And if you're wondering how much he pitched, he was somehow allowed to go 1-10 in the 1998 season.
The price of failure this year is losing your star talent in A-Rod for nothing.
So, a couple things on that. One, I was devastated when Alex Rodriguez left Seattle. I remember I actually did a school report and actually had to present it to class about that. And I remember, which that was a topic I picked, by the way. And I remember when I was rehearsing it with my family, I just immediately started tearing up when I was just rehearsing because, man, I missed the guy. I was devastated that he left. But there's a lot of story that people don't really understand about the whole thing, how Alex Rodriguez left Seattle. And I do intend to make a video on that someday.
Watch as he goes to Texas for $25 million per year for a decade? Have fun being trapped, Rangers!
And the other thing, I also liked how Urinating Tree was also basically mimicking Howard Lincoln, where Howard Lincoln did call Tom Hicks, owner of the Texas Rangers at the time, a fool for making such a contract offer. 10 years, $252 million. I mean, Can you blame A-Rod for taking that money? I certainly can't. I would have taken that money after working hard my entire life to become a baseball player.
The real prize, however, comes from the land of the rising sun, the Japanese Ty Cobb. A man who will not only revolutionize the game but introduce the sport to a new audience. One name will cause the league to tremble in fear. Ichiro.
So Ichiro was actually hanging around with the Mariners organization since possibly 1999, where he actually hung out with the team in spring training with Alex Rodriguez, Edgar Martinez, and Ken Griffey Jr., and Jay Buhner. So at one point, you had all those studs playing together, or at least touching the same field at one point. And it turns out that A-Rod and Griffey, they wanted to play with Ichiro, but unfortunately that did not happen because of the contractual problems with the Ortiz Blue Waves at the time, where he was stuck on that contract and wasn't allowed to leave, I guess, until basically after the 2000 season.
The Ichiro shogunate wastes no time in committing wanton destruction across the baseball realm. A true juggernaut boasting the most talent in Mariner history. Ichiro performing as advertised, Brett Boone coming out of nowhere to be an all-star, Edgar Martinez still raking. The pitching depth is now a strength of the team. The bullpen isn't a total dumpster fire.
So things to point out there. So yeah, Ichiro, I liked how he said he was doing it as advertised. He had Brett Boone come out of nowhere to become an all-star, which, by the way, he became my replacement favorite player after A-Rod left. And there was a funny story with me and Brett Boone. So I was waiting in line to get an autograph for Brett Boone, and I was just two people in front of me, and then he left. I cried the entire day. And then when you go to that bullpen, that was actually the best bullpen in baseball. So to say that it was not a total dumpster fire was an understatement. But I'm sure he said that for a certain reason. So let's find out why he said that.
116 wins on the way to beautiful freedom. A record-breaking season full of this hope thing that Seattle knows little about.
Did anyone notice that dude in the red was trying to get Edgar Martinez's home run ball? He jumped out of his seat in center field to try to get the ball. I wonder what happened to him after that. If anyone knows, leave it in the comments.
No need for baby steps, boys. Onward to your glorious future.
And oh yeah, by the way, so after the Mariners won the ALDS, American League Division Series, I'll be honest, I didn't really have much confidence after that. Even with their 116 wins, going up against the Yankees, especially when they were literally playing under the fire of 9/11. Now, I'm not saying that's a great excuse or anything, but even without that, the Yankees were a fantastic, well-built team and well-coached. So I didn't really see the Mariners beating them at all. I mean, Oakland would have been nice because they're known to choke in the playoffs anyway, but they choked earlier.
The throw misses a cutoff man, shot into the plate.
They are once again death-starred by the evil empire. The best record in baseball's history, and you shit yourself so hard that you loop back over into a laughingstock in less than a week. Like seriously, you couldn't even make this into a series? God, you're pathetic. I hope you don't make it back here for another 20 years. May Game 5 haunt you for an eternity.
What a
Farewell.
pathetic display.
So I guess maybe Urinating Tree said this back in 2001, and if that's the case, it is all your fault, dude, for making this curse go around until 2022. Thanks a lot, my man. But man, that series was just awful. It was just painful to watch. Just watching the Mariners basically do nothing, just get absolutely just bounced around, with the exception of Game 3, where they actually did score runs. And then they choke in Game 4, and that was another long story. Ugh. And then Game 5, virtually unwatchable. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I looked at the score, and I just walked out and went back to playing my Command and Conquer. That's how bad it was.
For being utterly decimated, they sure rebuild quickly. The Mariners boast another strong season and are 3 games ahead of a tight AL West. They brought cups for their fans too. No pain this year.
I sure hope those cups are strong enough against those dick punches. But that 2002 team, I mean, there was some hope that they were at least going to make it back to the playoffs. And there was even hope that they were going to win 100 games. But an injury to Edgar Martinez and I guess losing Aaron Seeley, replacing him with James Baldwin was not exactly good. And then you had a slightly slowed down production of Brett Boone and his offense. He certainly didn't hit 37 home runs again. He hit just 24. So we'll see exactly what happened after that.
The protection was apparently red solo cups. The dick punching continues as Seattle reverts to pedestrian form, conveniently missing out on a playoff spot. 20-game winning streaks by Moneyball will do that.
So yeah, that movie, Moneyball, 2002 Oakland A's, everything that happened in that movie and that book is literally the reason why the Mariners didn't make the playoffs. But also not to mention, the Mariners did not make any solid trades in the 2002 deadline. And a very infamous quote from Howard Lincoln was this. And by the way, it is from this book, Shipwrecked, and you should totally check this book out. You can get this book on Amazon, and I'll leave the link in there. And this is what Howard Lincoln said in this book. The goal of the Mariners is to not win the World Series. It is to field a competitive team year after year to put itself in position to win a World Series. And hope at some point that happens. People want us to do something exceptional, but what we want to do is to have the discipline to stick with our plan. So basically he's saying that he didn't give a about winning.
Lou Piniella puts his foot down. He's had enough of the organization's cheapness and commandeers his managerial ships for Tampa Bay. Being dumped for the goddamn Devil Rays. That's embarrassing.
Actually, in 2002, Lou Piniella was so infuriated with this team that he took it out on an umpire named C.B. Bucknor. Now here is exactly what happened towards the end of the 2002 season.
Ben Davis hits one up the middle. Mike Young gets the ball. Throws it to first, and Davis is called out by umpire C.B. Bucknor, who will get a mouthful from Lou Piniella. And perhaps the frustration of the second half of the season bubbling to the surface. Piniella gets the immediate ejection, and then we have a Class A, top-notch, classic, four-star Lou Piniella hissy fit. The tearing up of first base and the throwing of it. And we tear it up and we throw it, but apparently
Not a good toss.
not good enough of a toss as Buckner looks on. There we go.
Can you believe that he threw that base? Oh, Lou Piniella. At least you went out with a bang in some way.
His more even-keeled replacement Bob Melvin leads the team, once again, to another strong start. A 7-game lead in their division should be enough motivation to get the team to add.
That 2003 season was fun to watch. Like, I had fun watching Brett Boone just completely bounce back, and that was also the same year that I graduated 5th grade, and 5th grade was such a blast for me for so many reasons. Like, I got to go to summer camp, went to some Mariners games, played baseball. Anyways, so I had hopes for that season because I was thinking, they can't do this again, possibly. They can't possibly miss the playoffs again while going on this hot streak once again.
Management is once again tied up in the back and does nothing at the deadline. Jeff Nelson has become an enemy of the people by criticizing our inactivity. He shall be sent to the Yankee Gulag. Take that, asshole.
He actually did criticize that management, and I do give him a lot of kudos for actually having the balls to go up against the likes of Howard Lincoln and Chuck Armstrong, because they literally were not doing anything at the deadline, not allowing Pat Gillick any resources to make any kind of moves. And then, of course, Howard Lincoln gets their feelings hurt.
How dare you say something like that to me? No, you're getting out of here. Go to the Yankees. Off.
The Mariners, yes, punch their fans in the dick. They slide out of the playoff picture because Moneyball decided to keep happening. That shit's a fad, we're good there.
Can't really blame Moneyball stuff anymore. I'm just gonna blame the Mariners for literally just not being active at the trade deadline.
Carlos Guillen is also a fad. He can go on to the Tigers where he becomes a core contributor to playoff teams. We also have this Mike Cameron thing that we can toss along with him.
Those moves actually hurt the Mariners more than you were ever going to think. Like, I remember at the time, I thought getting rid of him was like, meh. At least we got Rich Aurelia and Randy Wynn can play center field, and we got Raul Ibanez, right? This is still going to work out. But no, actually, losing Mike Cameron was actually that devastating because although he didn't exactly have the bat to replace Griffey, he still had the speed and the defense to almost more than make up for it. But from what I heard, the management was really obsessed with his strikeouts, so they let that get in the way of not giving him a contract extension.
Great news, boys. Your contending window is slammed shut in your face. You're terrible again. No reason to pretend to like these old guys. Get the fuck out of here. What has John Olerud done for me lately?
Oh, that 2004 season. Ugh. Just watching them lose consecutively at the beginning of the season was just not fun at all. That was like the first time I ever watched a team, especially my favorite team, actually like be bad. Like, it was just so shocking to me because I was just so used to watching the Mariners win at least 90 games and then have it to be the complete opposite. Like, I was like, wait, what is this? Like, I'm not used to this. As you can tell, I didn't even go to a game. That's how bad it was. And you know what? This is exactly where you have the right to call me a bandwagon fan. But hey, I was at least still paying attention, listening to the radio and watching it on TV once in a while and actually paying attention.
You know who hasn't done anything for us lately? Heathcliff Slocum. Who were those two prospects we gave up for him again? Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe. Two key contributors to the Red Sox World Series push. Don't you worry, we would have ruined them if we kept those two anyway. At least Jose Cruz didn't turn into much. Unlike this David Ortiz cat. Now where the fuck have I heard that name before?
I'm telling you, the Mariners not only built the Yankees dynasty, and I may have already said it before in this video, but they also built Boston's dynasty. They built the dynasty of the Yankees and ended Boston's curse.
Congratulations, you have successfully wasted the career of Edgar Martinez. You also wasted a record-breaking season for Ichiro. It's the other consistent trait of Mariner baseball besides dick punching.
It was really sad to watch Edgar Martinez not be able to win a World Series with the Mariners, and Ichiro with his hit record didn't really turn into anything at all. But there was a funny story. So I just got this game called Star Wars Battlefront, like the actual good Battlefront, not the EA one. Forget about that game. But I remember I was trying to shuffle between playing that game and watch that Mariners game. Of course, I missed the 258th hit because I was so focused on Battlefront because the game was just that good. If only it was the EA version of it, I guess.
New GM Bill Bavasi is doing things. Bold things, in fact. Look at them catch the big fish of Adrian Beltre and Richie Sexson. It's a new age of baseball in Seattle.
I was really hoping that it was going to be a new era, and maybe at the time I was thinking maybe that's what Bill Bavasi is up to, actually signing really good players. And at the time I was really excited. I thought Richie Sexson and Adrian Beltre would actually get something going for the Mariners.
This statement is correct. The only leading the Mariners do are in drug suspensions. Just don't waste Felix Hernandez like you did those before him.
Felix Hernandez was actually fun to watch that season. Like, he was actually showing what he could be, and he was actually the most exciting that I saw ever since Randy Johnson. But wait, I never really was old enough to actually remember watching Randy Johnson.
It's just like you wasting the third overall pick on Jeff Clement. Just like Mariner hopes he rakes through AAA only to punch the Major League team in the dick. He doesn't develop whatsoever. Prevent this in the future, please.
Punching the team in the dick within the minor league system. Yep, that's exactly what Bill Bavasi was really good at. And there is much more to come in terms of dick punching.
Uh-oh, Mount Ichiro erupted outside of Japan thanks to poor team culture and god-awful leadership by Mike Hargrove. Let's cure these horrible ailments by signing a bunch of random dudes.
Yeah, Jared Washburn, yeah, he was really garbage. Carl Everett, yeah, he was pretty bad. You know, the man that doesn't believe in dinosaurs. And then Matt Lawton, who didn't even play for the Mariners. And here's the other twist of that story with Carl Everett. So the White Sox had Carl Everett and Frank Thomas for that 2005 season, and they were both let go for free agency. So here's what happened between those two. So Mariners signed Carl Everett to a contract that was worth $4 million in a season. Frank Thomas was signed at a base of $500,000 with an incentive of making up to $2.6 million. And Frank Thomas obviously outplayed Carl Everett, and man, Bill Bavasi, like, you definitely got outbeamed by the Billy Bean.
Nope, still total diarrhea.
So the Mariners were actually decent in that 2006 season. They were at least hanging around for the AL West, just behind Oakland. So there actually was some little bit of hope.
Why the hell do the Indians keep calling about our shitty prospects? First they wanted Asdrubal Cabrera, now they want this Shin-Soo-Choo kid. They're gonna be nothing. Go to Cleveland and die like everything else.
So Asdrubal Cabrera was actually traded for Eduardo Perez, a part-time designated hitter basically, who basically did nothing for the Mariners. And then the Mariners traded away Shin-Soo-Choo for Ben Broussard, who basically played backup first baseman behind Richie Sexson. And here's a fun fact. So right after that trade, the Mariners were playing the Cleveland Indians, and Shin-Soo-Choo played in his Major League debut, and Shin-Soo-Choo actually got to play against the Mariners, and he hit a home run off of Felix Hernandez, and the Mariners lost 1-0. So the Mariners basically traded their way to lose. Great job, Bavasi.
The Mariners once again do this adding thing the competitive teams try to do. It helps, but Mike Hargrove is somehow still here. He finally got the hint by means of Ichiro and committed seppuku outside of the stadium gates. Ichiro then agrees to a 5-year extension. These are completely unrelated events.
It was completely unrelated, really? No, not at all. So yeah, it turns out that Mike Hargrove and Ichiro didn't get up really long with each other, and I kind of noticed this. It was when Mike Hargrove actually moved Ichiro to center field, so I guess there was a little bit of beef going on there.
This self-sacrifice galvanizes the team to be within 1 game of the division lead in mid-August. We got extra protection this time, too.
I wouldn't count on extra protection for a 2007 Bill Bavasi run season.
The Mariners add brass knuckles to amplify pain to the dick punching. Losing 15 of 18 is a blow few can recover from.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's exactly what they did.
This team needs the final pitching pieces to get them over the top. We need bona fide workhorses. Let's take our time like Eric Bedard does between pitches and acquire him for a massive sum. Carlos Silva, too. We shall pay him the bounty he deserves.
I remember those 2 moves right at the time, and my friends were like so excited about it, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know about this. I mean, 2007 just felt too fluky back then. And I noticed that the 2007 Mariners, after that season, they let Jose Guillen go, who was actually doing pretty well at right field. And then they replaced him with Brad Wilkerson, who did nothing. And then Eric Bedard was basically unavailable throughout 2008 and 2009 and going forward. He didn't really do much. And then Carlos Silva, they paid him all that money to suck.
Let's see how your promising season has gone so far. Can you guys please stop with the ball busting for 1 goddamn moment?
Yeah, that season was so embarrassing to watch. It was just pain to watch. Just watching them lose games, and they were losing games by a massive sum.
I remember Richie Sexson, the big bopper who was supposed to solidify first base. Turns out he declined rapidly and has become an immovable albatross who could neither hit nor field. We can fix this, just need a body bag and an unsuspecting car to throw into the ocean. He can lie next to the incompetent Bill Bavasi.
Well, to be fair, there was actually one highlight that Richie Sexson had with the Mariners in 2008. Check it out.
Property of the Boston Red Sox. Look out. Whoa, hey now. This'll get something started. Whoa. Holy moly. This is not the spark I was looking for.
At least he got into a fight. And then Bill Bavasi getting fired. That was about time. It took way too long for the Mariners to do that. And, you know, it really wasn't fair. So the management of the Mariners claimed that they didn't really have money to spend throughout the 90s and then the early 2000s when they actually had really good players and decent general managers. But they somehow had money for Bill Bavasi. Right. Great.
What other chaff do we have to burn through? Jose Vidro? That dude sucks and we're paying him $8.5 million per year? How god-awful was Bavasi?
Jose Vidro was so bad that the only thing that you could probably search out of him with the Seattle Mariners was literally that commercial.
The failure lasts all year long. $100 million payroll, a 101-loss season, league laughingstock. Who the hell knew that spending money doesn't work if you just throw it around aimlessly?
Only the Mariners would make that possible.
Okay, the goal is to do the exact opposite of what made us god-awful. Hot GM prospect and analytical savior and Jack Seren-sick. Moneyball marinated manager and Don Wakamatsu. We're good to go now.
I remember when that change happened, I was like, okay, well, at least they can't really do any worse than that, so we'll see. But knowing me as a pessimist at the time, I guess still am, I didn't really have much hope.
Just don't look as former GM Pat Gillick built a World Series champion in Philadelphia.
Not only did Pat Gillick win a World Series with the Phillies in 2008, also Jamie Moyer did as well, which Bill Bavasi also gave away for nothing.
To the Philadelphia Phillies for a couple of minor league pitchers by the names of Andrew Baldwin and Andrew Barb.
Hey, look, everyone! Ken Griffey! He's a fossil, but nostalgia!
That was probably the most exciting moment I felt out of the Mariners since 2003 with Ken Griffey Jr. coming back. And Urinating Tree was right. It really was just nostalgia. Like, he was not really... And it's not so much that he was just a fossil. I mean, the guy got overweight. Look at the pictures between Ken Griffey Jr. in 1999 and Ken Griffey Jr. in 2009. Totally different players.
This should distract the viewing public from the fact that Eric Bedard can't stay healthy if his life depended on it. His shoulder has to meet its maker. Who did we give up for him again? All-Star Adam Jones, among other pieces. Great.
I like that expression. Great. And Adam Jones became an all-star, Chris Tillman became a decent pitcher, and George Sherrill became an all-star reliever, as if he was already decent with the Mariners at the time. Man, that was a big haul. And I also made a video of how Eric Bedard going to the Mariners, where the Mariners traded for him, turned into Yordan Alvarez going to Houston. And here's the link to that video as well.
Meet the future of Mariners baseball and Dustin Ackley, whom you can't develop worth a damn.
Dustin Ackley was actually pretty decent in his 2011 season.
It's Worley, 3-2. High drive, deep right field. That baby is out of here. First major league.
And then basically disappeared after that.
At least you aren't total garbage. You're over 500. Nowhere near the playoffs, but it's a plus. Adrian Beltre can attest. You aren't content with hitting just the fans in the dick.
And the Mariners didn't really do much at the deadline either in the 2009 deadline. If anything, they traded away Jared Washburn when he was actually doing pretty good. Like, I think they should have just actually tried to compete for the playoffs, because give Ken Griffey Jr. at least one last shot for some kind of a championship run. But nope, that didn't happen.
Jack isn't going to let the Mariners fail like Bavasi before him. The key is to do exactly what he did and throw money around. Sean Figgins is a piece that can definitely fit the second base hole. We need a legit number 2 for King Felix as well. Cliff Lee, that's the guy we need.
At least the Mariners didn't give up much for Cliff Lee, but I really thought it was a little bit random when they went out and got Sean Figgins, because I thought Jack Sorensic was about like saving the money, build for the future, and maybe compete, which they kind of did in 2009, but then that whole thing with signing Sean Figgins kind of just came out of nowhere. I guess he really thought that they had a chance for the division.
Turns out the Carlos Silva signing also became a Sexton-style albatross to deal with. Fortunately, the Cubs will take his uselessness on, all for the cancerous price of Milton Bradley.
Yeah, Milton Bradley didn't really turn out to much either.
Ken Griffey Jr.'s swan song is going so well that he's allegedly sleeping in the dugout and is promptly driven off to retirement land in Florida. He pulls a Seattle Pilots and leaves abruptly. A fitting end for a wasted career.
Very fitting ending, and just the way Griffey left Seattle was actually kind of hilarious, where he just jumps in his car and just drives off. And if you're looking for a more detailed analysis on that, check out this video as well, made by Secret Base about the Seattle Mariners history. Terrible history that was. And it does explain exactly what happened. And my favorite part of that video when Griffey was driving off was when Buhner messaged him or called him or whatever and said, "Dude, where the are you?" I wonder if Griffey didn't even answer that call or that text.
We did get one of the best prospects in baseball for trading Cliff Lee, though. First baseman Justin Smoke, whom you still can't develop worth a damn.
I actually was excited about getting Justin Smoke out of that trade, because the Mariners were just a lost cause in 2010, and I was thinking, yeah, might as well just get some value out of him. And Justin Smoke did look promising, and then he didn't really turn out much either, other than maybe hitting 20 home runs in the season.
You thought you were going to be good this year, weren't you? Well, how does another 101 loss season sound? Painful? You'd think your dick would be resilient by now. It's obviously Wakamatsu's fault. Fuck that guy.
Oh, being resilient. I mean, I guess it is resilient, since I'm still watching this team to this very day. And I thought it was a little bit random when they got rid of Don Wakamatsu, but I guess the team was so bad that they just had to fire someone. And if you have any thoughts on Don Wakamatsu on his time with the Mariners, go ahead and leave some stuff in the comments as well.
Yeah, Melton, you're far too much cancer for your god-awful production to deal with. Kindly get the fuck out and take your money with you to therapy.
I was actually at that game with a friend when Milton Bradley got thrown out, and it was really hilarious when he did get thrown out. And I remember my friend, he just blurted out,
It's okay, Milton Bradley, it's just a game.
the Mariners actually won that game.
Ball game. 1-0 from Thornton. Ground ball, base hit! Brendan Ryan wins it for the Mariners!
Meet the future of Mariners baseball in Danny Hultzen. He develops Eric Bedard syndrome and his shoulder all but dies on him. Woof.
That was actually really sad because I really had hopes for Danny Hultzen being a part of the future of the Mariners, and along with other pitchers as well, such as Taijuan Walker and James Paxton. At least those two kind of panned out for the Mariners, but I really wanted to see Danny Hultzen actually do something. And this is not the first time where the Mariners had a promising pitcher in the minor league system. They also had a guy named Ryan Anderson, who was actually known as the Little Unit, who also developed injury problems as well in the early 2000s.
Young left-hander Ryan Anderson pitches 4 innings, strikes out 6, walks just 1, and the M's win 3-2. They'll open the season Tuesday night against the Red Sox at Safeco Field.
I mean, you are mediocre as hell hovering around 500, but you are only a half game back from the division lead. Look, an oasis lies before us.
And that's the game I was at, that Brendan Ryan game winner. It's almost like Urinating Tree actually knew where I was. And that 2011 season, like, it was kind of promising. Like, they were like a really scrappy young team, but they were at least hanging around with the division at least until mid-July.
The oasis is a mirage. How do you feel about 17 straight losses? You can think it over as you fall into a sarlacc pit.
I actually felt like I was in a sarlacc pit during that time.
With its stomach making up over half of its mass. Once swallowed, the victims were forced into one of the multiple stomachs of the underground organism. If the sarlacc's main stomach was at full capacity, then those consumed afterwards would be sent to its smaller stomachs to be kept for later digestion.
17-game losing streak, and I was like, what? This just happened all of a sudden? Yeah, it was really painful.
We have done it, gentlemen. The Mariners have acquired one of the top prospects in baseball in Jesus Montero. He does become one of the biggest busts in baseball's recent history, but he'll keep feasting on ice cream sandwiches.
And this was after the fact that the Mariners didn't get Prince Fielder, because that was when I thought they were going to get Prince Fielder because the Angels got Albert Pujols. I was thinking, you got to sign something. You got to make some kind of big move to give some kind of hope for the Mariners, but I guess Jack Zduriencik was committed to rebuilding and didn't want to spend that money. And of course, Jesus Montero turned into nothing. He was not only useless as a catcher, he was also useless as a hitter.
Meet the future of Mariners baseball and Mike Zunino. This undercooked steak is ready for eating off the bat. Sure, it's still frozen in the middle, but the fuck do we know about prospect development?
I really like that analogy using meat where, yeah, Mike Zunino was really like raw talent, but he had great potential, but of course they rushed him and they didn't really develop him well at all. And he turned into a strikeout king as a hitter with some occasional home runs. And at least a good glove, too.
Congratulations, you give the final farewell to the wasted prime of Ichiro. Watching him in pinstripes. Shameful fucking display, Jack. The Yankees?
It was really sad that Ichiro's time with the Mariners was wasted. All that talent, and you still couldn't even win anything, and his only playoff appearance with the Mariners was 2001.
Sean Figgins has all but forgotten how to play baseball since becoming a Mariner. So you're telling me that Jack overpaid for a one-year wonder? I mean, it's not an anchor. It's even worse than that. Perhaps he can hit his golden parachute.
That's how much I don't want to talk about him.
What a stunning surprise. The Mariners are still baseball's version of constipation.
Come to think of it, that 2013 season kind of did feel like that. It was just no hope at all, and it just felt like nothing. Like, Mariners weren't even spending money for talent. Nobody wanted to even be there. And the farm system was like pretty much dead, except like Nick Franklin and like Brad Miller, but that's all I could remember. And
gets into this and pretty good. Emery's the long run, right center field, going back his first home run! Well hit, deep right center field. Trout giving chase, running out of room. Goodbye! A home run for Brad Miller.
yeah, nothing else really happened that season. It was pretty forgettable too.
Manager Eric Wedge smells a rat. Zduriencik has gotten drunk with power and is deflecting blame like a force field. He takes your contract extension offer and shoves it up your ass.
Yeah, Jack Zduriencik in his last days, not good with the Mariners, and he beefed with basically everyone. Heard even fired some of his best scouts too, which is why his true colors showed him how bad he really was.
You have to spend to bolster the lineup, they say. Who gives a shit if he's in his early 30s and will probably melt on the field in the second half of his contract? Robinson Cano is the true second baseman for the next decade.
I remember how excited I was getting Robinson Cano on the Mariners, but I also said that just getting him is not enough. Go out and make some more moves for the 2014 season. And did they do that? Nope.
This is finally your chance again, Mariners. The Oakland A's have gone all in yet can't stop tripping over themselves. You have the talent to make it happen. James Paxton is emerging as a legit starting option. Plus, you've wasted enough of King Felix's career. Do something good for once, please.
He couldn't be any more right. And in that 2014 season, a lot of people may say that it was the bullpen or Robinson Cano that was carrying that team. The part that I thought that was carrying that team was the starting rotation of the Mariners, where you did have Felix Hernandez in his prime, and you also had Chris Young, Rowan Elias, I guess, and a young James Paxton at the time. So I really thought 2014 was a good shot for them to make the playoffs, and Oakland was literally trying to actually hand them a playoff spot. They literally did, because they did lose their division.
In what can be described as vintage Mariners, they do just enough to pretend to be competitive, yet fail miserably to go the extra mile. You miss out on a playoff spot by a game, eliminated on the final day of the year to the A's. Cue the dick punch.
Oh, that totally was. And the game that pretty much took their spirits out was when they lost to Toronto, and Felix was pitching that game and he just got absolutely drilled. But I didn't really blame him for it, because he spent the entire season carrying that entire team, and I think he was just exhausted. And I kept saying that Mariners have to secure a playoff spot early so you don't run into these kind of problems. And then Felix, he was just pretty much just done. I didn't blame him one bit for that meltdown.
Seattle now has something they haven't had in a while. Expectations. The strong season by their standards now has them thinking big. A nice contract given out to a legitimate power bat in Nelson Cruz, the continued prime of King Felix, a stud prospect in Taijuan Walker, and the most talent the organization has had since 2001. There's no way the punches break through a foot of protection.
Well, I kind of disagreed with that, because although the Mariners did get Nelson Cruz, they also did lose Michael Saunders and Chris Young, so they did lose some pieces. And I didn't think Fernando Rodney was the answer, even with his 48 saves, because whenever I usually see him trying to close games, he always made it dramatic where he had a guy at first or second base. So his kind of saves were stressful to watch. So I didn't really think the 2015 Mariners were going to do much at all, because it was not so much of what they were getting, it was so much how much they lost and didn't improve on.
Look, everyone! Edgar Martinez! He's gonna teach hitting and shit!
I thought that was kind of random when they hired Edgar Martinez. That kind of felt more like a nostalgia move more than an actual baseball move.
Lloyd McClendon not only steals first base, he also steals your protection. Just like every other time there's hope, the fans are relentlessly punched in the dick. It's not even anywhere near hopeful, they simply disappoint. Jack Zarensik has been revealed to be nothing more than a fraud in manager's clothing. He can take his deflecting ways to the bottom of the Pacific with all the failed prospects of seasons past. Perhaps he can develop into fish food.
I didn't really have much hope for that season anyway. Jack Zarensik, a general manager for pretty much half a decade for the Mariners, and he was just awful. And this guy didn't really have much of a plan. He was first trying to build a farm system that he never really built, and then he tried to spend money on Sean Figgins, and then he tried to do a lot of other things, giving money to Robinson Cano, trying to get all these kind of players, and the farm system was pretty much in the tank. And I remember when some of those Mariner fans made an excuse of
well, it was really Bill Bavasi's fault. He was the one that destroyed the entire team, and Jack Zarensik was just trying to clean up the mess, and it was just really hard to clean up.
Well, no. If you're not good at your job, you have no one to blame but yourself.
A new age of Mariners baseball begins yet again with a bounce-back year. They end on a crazy pace by going 18-9 in September. Just enough to be 3 games out of a playoff spot. Would you call this a dick punch? Probably.
Oh, that 2016 season. I can only remember that most by watching Steve Cishek of the bullpen of the Mariners just completely blowing it so many games. And I remember that Mariners team had a great run differential, better than the Texas Rangers, and they still missed the playoffs, and the Rangers made the playoffs.
Once again, the Mariners have expectations placed upon them. Look at this great shortstop they've acquired in Gene Segura. They've even bolstered the pitching core with Drew Smyly and Giovanni Gallardo. This year is going to be great, as Smyly can't pitch and Gallardo turns into a pumpkin. Oh, it's gonna be one of those years again.
2017 was that forgettable of a season. Like, I don't even remember it. It was like a blur to me. The only thing I really remembered was Gene Segura being good and Mitch Haniger breaking out until he got hurt, but that was really about it.
Hey, look everyone! Ichiro!
Another nostalgic move.
Who knew that a guy in his mid-40s wouldn't be good at baseball anymore? Poor Ichiro. What a waste.
Gotta give him credit though. He did keep himself in shape for pretty much his entire career in baseball, actually his entire career in baseball, and he still stays in shape to this day. It's just too bad that the Mariners just did not win with Ichiro.
You can add Robinson Cano to that list too. 80-game suspension for PEDs? Sounds like a recipe for disappointment.
I actually kind of figured that Robinson Cano was on PEDs because the man in 2016 hit 39 home runs while spending half the time at Safeco Field, well now T-Mobile Park, and when he was splitting time with Yankee Stadium, he hit at most 33 home runs. I was like, yeah, that's kind of a major red flag, and I called it. Yeah, after that, I was like, yep, I'm done with this guy. Get rid of him.
Wait a second. You aren't punching your fans in the dick? You're winning again? Sure, the run differential's disturbing. Kyle Seager is falling to shit and King Felix may be cooked, but this is so refreshing to see. 20 games over 500 and Mitch Haniger is turning into a legitimate cornerstone. You have an 8-game lead for the second wild card. At least be okay and you can finally snap the postseason drought.
I don't really know, like, it was really nice to watch Mitch Haniger actually do something and the team actually do pretty good, and with D. Gordon. But I was thinking, it just felt too good to be true.
It has to be said that after all the dick punches, this is probably the most painful. The team reverts to mediocrity after a hot start and has a sub-500 record after the All-Star break.
After that season, I was thinking, man, just screw it. Let's just blow it up. Like, there's just no point of keeping these guys around because if they couldn't even break 90 wins with these core of players, Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, Felix Hernandez, what makes you think they're going to do it when they're older and then more broken? And it was really tragic the way Felix Hernandez just broke down. Like, I couldn't blame the guy. It was because of all those years of carrying the Mariners literally on his back and his arm and his shoulder, only to have a complete fallout in 2018.
They're nowhere near the playoffs. Once again outshone by, you guessed it, the fucking Athletics!
Man, wouldn't want to be his insurance carrier.
I really like that reaction. The way he just expressed it, like, it's almost like he was connecting with the Mariners on exactly how they felt when they were just getting beat up for a playoff spot by Oakland, like, literally every single time they had an opportunity.
I mean, at least there's promise for next season, you say? I'm afraid I have bad news. They blew it up. They blew it to smithereens and patched everything with whatever they found. That's a dick punch in itself.
Actually, this wasn't really much of a dick punch. Like, I was actually okay with just blowing it up and just starting it over because we never really got to see much of the full potential of what Jerry DiPoto could do with the farm system of just rebuilding it, which he didn't really do it as much other than just drafting players quietly because he was trying to compete with the core of Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, Kyle Seager, Felix Hernandez. But after this 2018 season, I was ready for it. And coming into 2019, I was actually really excited no matter how that team was going to do. And I actually did spend a lot of that 2019 season looking at prospects for the future. And I actually streamed into their minor league streaming services to watch the games there too.
It's time to be honest with ourselves. Was this franchise really worth saving? All of the wasted talent over the years, all of the disappointment, all of the failure. And for what? A hollow claim to a paper championship almost 20 years ago. Bravo!
He's obviously referring to 1995, which is really true because at least until 2022, the only thing that Mariner fans were really dwelling on was 95 and 2001. And it's almost like the Mariners cared more about dwelling on those than actually wanting to win. And I barely have any recollection of 1995. The only thing I remember was watching Griffey get tackled by his teammates, and I was only 3 years old. And of course, 2001 happened, but it was disappointing because they didn't even win the World Series, and that was supposed to be the goal, not just to win 116 games. I was one of the minorities that said that we really just got to move on from that and just actually demand a better winning team. And there were times I did say that, and a lot of Mariner fans on Facebook got offended by that and called me a bandwagon fan, not true fan, fair weather fan, you name it.
Maybe next time you can simply turn your fans into eunuchs so they won't have to feel pain. No wonder why Seattle gives more of a shit about the Sonics. And that team hasn't been around in a decade.
I actually told him to say that just because the Sonics actually at the time, before 2022, made it to the playoffs more recently than the Mariners did. And I'm also a big Sonics fan too, and they really should come back to Seattle, but who knows when that's ever going to happen. But we'll see. And the Seattle Supersonics still does get that nostalgic love that still holds up to this day. So that's the end of the video, and I will say that I really did enjoy making this reaction video, and I always enjoy Urinating Trees content. It's great content because it's like the non-politically correct version of watching SportsCenter, basically. Because SportsCenter, let's face it, they're just not what they are. And he does have another video, by the way, of making fun of them as well. And he does make fun of a lot of things. And I love his non-filtering style, which really does deserve a lot of love. And not only am I going to ask you guys to subscribe to my channel, but go ahead and subscribe to his as well, as he does make excellent content, and I hope he keeps doing this for many years to come.